132. Pay attention to how these words are phrased. This is key to understanding not just NFPA 80, but any code book or any other standard. These three words, unless otherwise noted, comma. Unless otherwise noted, it is not intended that the provisions of this document be applied to facilities, equipment, structures, or installations that were existing or approved for construction or installation prior to the effective date of the document, of this standard. So what does that mean? The best way I can explain it is that when we see some requirements in Chapter 6 for our doors, that let's say there's something new in Chapter 6, because there's always little tweaks here and there, right? It's really intended from that point in time forward. It's not supposed to be applied backwards. Here's a really good example. In 1992, in the 1992 edition of NFPA 80, a change was made that required each piece of glass in a fire door assembly, in a Chapter 6 type fire door assembly, to be individually marked. And that just meant that it might be as simple as the UL symbol, right? The Underwriters Laboratory symbol, or other recognized mark from a nationally recognized testing laboratory. Well, we'll be talking about this numerous times. Wire glass has been used in our fire doors for more than a century, going on almost 125 years now. We have a lot of experience with wire glass. 1/4 inch clear wire glass. There's also a frosted or obscure wire glass. Doesn't matter whether the pattern is square or diamond. We have a lot of experience with wire glass. Well, we have people who are here we are in 2023, and they're doing these inspections, and they're looking at these doors that were installed, let's say, in the 80s or 70s or 60s, sometime before the 1990s. And they don't see these marks on the wire glass. And they're citing the lack of markings on the wire glass as a deficiency. But 132 tells us that's not the way this book is supposed to be used, unless it's otherwise noted. Now, here's something I want you to put a note, whether you put it in the margin or in the middle, write the number 5.1.1.2. 5112. When we get to Chapter 5 and we look at 5112, it says the provisions of this chapter shall apply to new and existing installations, and that's key. That means that all of our fire doors, regardless of generation, are required to be inspected. There are those who understand that these standards are only supposed to be applied going forward, right? So initially, when in the 2007 edition of NFPA 80, when it came out, there were those that said, well, I don't know what the big deal is. This only applies to new doors going forward. It doesn't apply to the millions of doors that were installed before the 2007 edition of NFPA 80. They were wrong, because this statement has been in NFPA 80 since that 2007. It appeared in the 2007 at the beginning of Chapter 5. So these inspections have always applied to all generations of doors. Very quick story. When I was working for DHI back then, and we were building the DAI 600 class, which is their certification class for the CFDAI, the Certified Fire Door Assembly Inspector program, we were at a big board meeting. And DHI has a sister organization called the Foundation. Back then, it was the Foundation for the Advancement of Life Safety and Security. It's got a different name today, but that's what it was back then. And the foundation had hired a former state fire marshal as to, kind of a lobbyist, kind of a, an expert to help the foundation make a plan to bring these inspections to, into being, into reality. So we're sitting around the board meeting and we're talking about the inspection program that I was building and everything. This is about 2005, 2006. We knew the inspection language was coming out in 2007. Oh, I take it back. This was a little bit later because I actually had a copy of the 2007 edition with me at this meeting. So this must have been, the meeting was in 2007. That's what it was. The board meeting was in 2007. And so we're having this discussion about how we're going to do this. And we were just getting ready to launch the DAI 600 class. That happened in October of 2007. So this was the spring of 2007. We're having this meeting. And this fire marshal says, well, I don't know what the big deal is. This doesn't affect older doors. It only affects new doors going forward. And I'll tell you what, I know what it's like to be on the hot seat, but every head in that room turned and looked at me. My boss looked at me. The whole board looked at me. The foundation board looked at me. Pardo, what do you mean? How could you miss this? This doesn't apply to existing doors? And I said, well, wait a minute here. And I got my book out and I showed the former state fire marshal. I said, well, would you read that passage? Would you read that statement out loud so everybody can hear it? And he did. The provisions of this chapter apply to both new and existing installations. And then he said, I didn't know that was in the book. And, it's unrealistic for us to believe that everybody knows what's in these books. Nobody knows these books better than I do. Nobody studies them like I do. But a lot of people think they know what the books say because they've heard. They've got some experience. Well, so-and-so told me this or so-and-so told me that. They don't have any firsthand knowledge. So what you need to be prepared to do when you're out in the field and you're doing these inspections is lead, is teach. Show them where the information lives in the book. It's key. It's key to doing these inspections.